Anish takes his pawn back, they shake hands and off we go. d4 is on the board. Vishy plays the symmetrical d5, knight f3, knight f6, and while in London, you play the London. Bishop f4 by Anish Giri. We have the London system on the board now, and Vishy Anand, let's see what he chooses. He goes for the slightly more aggressive c5 because it hits the center and also opens up the queen's path to attack the pawn on b2, and that's exactly what Vishy played here. He played his queen to b6, and now knight c3. Don't snatch the pawn because knight b5 gives white a great position. So bishop d7 is played to stop the knight from coming here, and rook b1 by Anish Giri. He could have also taken the pawn, which was a sharp line, but he plays this. Now e6, and bishop goes to e2. Vishy Anand here focused, plays his bishop to e7, and Anish simply castles it out. Black's position looks pretty good, has good space, pieces have come out, knight will come out to c6. Anish decides to take on c5, and now you can take back with the bishop or the queen. Vishy takes with the queen, and Anish now jumps in with his knight to e5. He's attacking the bishop. If you try to save this bishop, it's possible, but Vishy says, well, I'm not so keen, I just put my rook here, maybe now I will save it, and Anish goes bishop d3. So now bishop e8 is possible, but Vishy does not really mind. He goes knight c6, and he's telling Anish that you can take my bishop if you want it, and he takes it. But now white has the bishop pair, but black has very good pieces. You see all of them coordinating very well. a3 played here by Anish, and now bishop f6, hitting the knight on c3, putting pressure here, and Vishy looks very comfortable in this position. Anish has to find ways to create counterplay. One is knight a4 and c4, just pushing the pawn, getting it rolling. He goes knight e2 with similar ideas of b4 and c4, but Vishy is very sharp. He goes knight e5, and now there's pressure down on the c file. Knight takes d3 is an idea, so Anish goes c3, and that's already a sign that white's position is not that great. Vishy chops off the bishop, queen takes, and now he can offer his queen for trade. Queen c4. Anish, should he take the queen or should he not? He decides to keep the queens, it seems, because if he takes, rook takes, black will then go b5, a5, b4. So Anish tries to keep the queens on the board with queen c2, but now the knight jumps to c5. You're looking at these two squares now. Rook d1 played, and you can try to play queen b3, but a5 is such a good move. You want to clamp down with a4, and Anish waits here. He goes bishop g3, and will Vishy push his pawn to a4? No, he goes b5. He's actually having two ideas now, a4 as well as b4. The minority attack, as they call, knight d4 by Anish. You have to be careful with your queen here. Should not get trapped somehow with a move like b3. But knight e4, Vishy is very sharp here. Now the c3 pawn under pressure. He plays rook c1, and Vishy just improves his position. g6. He's in no hurry right now. Anish plays pawn to f3, hitting the knight, but the knight can chop off the bishop. Takes, pawn takes, and is it time now to break with b4? Yes, it is. b4 on the board. He takes ab. There was also possible to take cb here, but he takes here. Vishy takes back, and now if you take on b4, the problem is there's bishop d4, and black is doing very well. So he plays queen d3, offering a trade of queens. Anish is hoping for the material to be exchanged in order for the pressure to be reduced. But look at that. Vishy comes in with his rook. This is clearly better. Anand turning on the heat here. Anish has more time on the clock, but positionally he is in big trouble. Rook b1, trying to protect the pawn. And now b takes c3. He takes with the rook. And Vishy should not trade now. He should keep more pieces on the board. He plays rook b8, attacking the pawn on b2. The pawn has to be pushed forward. He pushes it, but now Anand moves rook d2. The knight is pinned here. There's pressure on d4. It's big problems. He goes king h2. And now bishop d4. E takes d4 has been played. Rook takes d4. Pawn push to b5. And rook stops the pawn. So now Vishy is a pawn up. If he somehow manages to round up this pawn, he would be clearly better. g4 by Anish. And Vishy is thinking, what's the best way to press here? He first improves his king. He has 3 minutes 29 seconds to convert this. Anish has 4 minutes 22 seconds. Pawn comes up to g5. And rook goes in c7. Anand plays his rook to a4. He's going to a5. He's putting pressure here. Vishy is better. This would be a huge point for the Ganges Grandmasters because the PBG Alaskan Knights have been absolutely too strong in this tournament. Rook c5. He comes back. Vishy comes with this king. If he can get here, it would be epic. Anish brings his rook back. Rook goes to b7. Now defending the 7th rank. Planning this maneuver. And he waits. And now it's time to go with the king. King e5. Plays it. Anish in big pressure. He might lose this game. He comes back. And now can we go king d6? But there's a check. How about king d4? Attacking the rook. Wow. Brilliant play here by Vishy. This pawn is falling. Rook goes to c8 and Vishy takes another pawn. You are now 2 pawns up. Now let this pawn just go. You know, you can play rook b1 and then slowly push f5, f4. But Vishy goes rook b8. He's trying to trade off one of the rooks, which is a good idea. But Anish might get some activity with rook c7, attacking f7 as well as h7. He goes rook c1. And now the conversion part is a bit tricky. When you have only 2.5 minutes, Anish snatches 1 pawn. The position still looks good. King f6 back on the board. And what's the way to continue? He goes rook c7, attacking f7. Rook comes to f8. A check here. King comes up. And he attacks the g5 pawn. The pawn goes back. Check again. King here. Attacks the pawn. And he pushes pawn to f6. Goes rook to d7. And king d4. Very strong. Goes rook h1. And now Vishy plays rook to c3. You can see that white has somehow managed to make it all uncomfortable for black. And Anish goes and moves his rook to the side of the board. This is no longer winning for Vishy. It has been a very good defense for Anish. And somehow the win was not easy. You had to give up a pawn and you had to push your pawns bravely. And this was all not so easy. Rook d7. You can see how Anish's rooks are basically not letting these pawns advance freely. Rook a8. And now Anish, who has 2 minutes 12 seconds, plays his rook to f7. Attacks the pawn. Pawn pushes forward. Gives a check. Can't go backwards because the f6 pawn will fall. So comes ahead king d4. Another check comes in. King c5, another check. And Vishy realizes And this is one of the biggest strengths of Vishy, that the position equalized and he agreed to a draw, and that is simply amazing. It was a very intense game here, but yeah, in the end Vishy missed golden opportunity to beat Anish, and you can see how good of friends they are. They immediately start analyzing. I'm going to leave you with these scenes for the rest. The PBG Alaskan Knights won this match against the Ganges Grandmasters.